all about your team. If you don't have good operations, your operation's going to fall apart sooner rather than later. You need to have good sales and people who are able to sell. They're hungry like you. They see your vision and they're bought in. Ultimately, I knew that's what I needed from a foundation perspective with this, just like my last business, to make things work. When I had my first business, I wasn't 100% confident on the products. I didn't have the right people. And funny enough, that wasn't a fear of mine or an issue like with the last business when opening. But ultimately, for the success, it's all about your team, operations and sales folks.
Welcome to the Art of Kaizen for Entrepreneurs, growing 1% everyday podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Art of Kaizen for Entrepreneurs podcast, where we discuss how to grow 1% every day in both business and itself. Joining me today is Andy Trinh. Andy is a legend when it comes to franchises. As the former award-winning franchise owner at Fleet Clean and now the youngest franchise owner of Stand Strong Fencing in Arlington, Virginia, a commercial and residential fencing contractor that is innovating the fencing world. Here to talk to Andy about how to find success in business and everything from cleaning to fencing. Thank you, Andy, for joining me today.
Absolutely, Kyle. Thanks so much for having me. I'm always so honored when someone wants to speak to me about my entrepreneurial journey. I guess they find me interesting.
With success like you've had, it's definitely very interesting, Andy. And I'd like to go back to the beginning and really be able to talk a little bit about not just Stand Strong Fencing, but also go back into Fleet Clean so we can get a clear understanding of kind of how you found your success in business. Can you tell me a little history about yourself, how you got into the franchise world, and how you really sparked your initial success?
Absolutely. So, in 2020, during COVID, I graduated college. I had some job offers lined up with a real estate firm and some finance firms, and boom, the world ended. Everything was shut down, and I was told, "Hey, I'm sorry, we're having a hiring freeze. We can't hire you right now. They're furloughing their own people." And so I was crushed. Of course, I wanted to be that corporate guy after college, like everybody. And so, it happens. Pandemic hit, and it happened to me and all my friends. I eventually ended up finding a job as a manager at a publicly traded aluminum company. It's one of the biggest ones. Fun fact: we knew about the Dodge Ram TRX before the general public did, because we were actually moving parts and producing parts for Dodge for that truck. But anyways, kind of in between that time, I was doing a little job searching after losing my offers. I did look into franchising. I've always thought franchising was a super cool concept, being able to take a business in a box or a model in a box and being able to replicate it. I've always thought that was so interesting in high school. But as a high schooler, I kind of just thought franchising was McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, and kind of mainly in the food industry. I didn't realize that franchising kind of just it can be in any industry until really I started digging deeper on buy, biz, sell. Originally, I was looking at pizza franchises, which maybe wasn't the smartest idea in the middle of COVID, but I was still daring to potentially do that. And I was looking for maybe even established businesses for sale that weren't franchised. And funny enough, I saw on Buy, Biz, Sell Fleet Clean USA franchise opportunities available. I made a phone call. I flew to their headquarters in Florida at the time. Now their headquarters is in Vegas, but flew down to Florida in the middle of COVID with my mask on. And when the world was shut down, met with the leadership team, and the rest was history. I became the youngest franchise owner of Fleet Clean USA when I was 21 years old. And I sold that business when 3 days after I had turned 25, and quickly went into another one, Stand Strong Fencing.
I got to back you up a little bit because I want to hear about that pitch. I want to hear about that conversation with the franchise owners and being able to convince them to be the youngest franchise owner, right? To be inside of Fleet Clean. Talk to me a little bit how, one, you get the confidence, and two, how you positioned yourself there for everyone to develop trust in you and be able to want to go forward with you and owning one of their franchises.
Absolutely, because every franchise system out there, they really grill you. They have to make sure you're the right fit for their brand. They have to make sure that you're not going to hurt their brand being an operator. And so honestly, I don't know. I just felt like, hey, if they accept me, great. If they don't, no hard feelings. I went down there. I had plenty of phone calls prior of going down to Florida with their director of franchise development, who I'm still friends with today. And so I just told him my story. I told him I was 21 years old. Thought I was going to be a corporate guy, but deep in my heart, ever since high school, I've always thought franchising was super cool. And I wanted to learn more about non-food franchises. I wanted to kind of learn about, the business that's so niche, because I thought Fleet Clean was really niche, and it really is. And then I just wanted to get my feet wet. It seemed like a first, like a really good first franchise because it's like relatively a simple business. I guess he liked me on the phone. After that, we met up in person with Fleet Clean's president and another director and our sales manager. And I just told them how I have a background in sales selling cars in college. So I think they really like that. Just naturally, I think I'm a salesman. And I just told them how also I kind of have the economics and finance background. They're like, well, you're hot off the press from college. So clearly some of these hard skills you probably still remember versus someone who's looking at a franchise when they're twice my age. And so, ultimately they rolled the dice on me. Not gonna lie, they really did because I mean I could have not done very well. I could have hurt the brand, especially being 21. A lot of people think someone that young is just not ready or immature. Special shout out to Dale Waite, who's the director of franchise development at Fleet Clean, for really vouching the Fleet Clean's president for me about awarding me a franchise. And so ultimately, I don't know. I felt I just sold myself. I was very upfront about my situation and my desires to be in entrepreneurship and my fascination with franchising for the past, several years, even from high schools.
Hey, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the content. Just want to take a quick intermission to address the business owners watching this right now. I have been in the marketing industry for over a decade, and I have found that there is two major things that I am trying to help the world understand. One, there's a common denominator to success. Every successful business has the same foundational structure built out, and we'd love to be able to support understanding what that foundation is. And two, 90% of marketing agencies screw you over for one clear identifier, and that is data. Only 3% of consumers are ready to purchase today. The other 97% are being nurtured by your advertising dollars and advertising spend. We created Kaizen Marketing Agency to give you ownership of not only the customers that you're getting through your front door, but also the ownership of your data and understanding what actually grows your business and giving you the control to be able to grow it. My goal personally is to be one of the best marketers in the world. And the only way to do that is to help as many businesses as I possibly can actually grow their company. Not just sell Facebook ads or Google ads, but put a service together that gives you ownership and growth. So I hope you enjoy this content. If you're loving it, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And if you really want to know more about how to grow your company and you want a free audit and game plan, we'll hand you the keys to the kingdom on how to be successful. Click the link below. We'll do a 15-minute audit. First 10 minutes, we'll really break down your business. Last 5 minutes, we'll show you those common denominators that you need to be successful for your company and how to implement it into your business. So your charisma, your general attitude is what really initially won them over. But then once you actually got the franchise, how did you find success? Obviously, your background in finances definitely helps as a business owner, right? It's the first thing that we need to know. We have to understand business is based off numbers. If you're a business owner, listen to this right now, and you don't understand your numbers, you got to take a step back and realize that that is everything when it comes to your growth. Because if you're not profitable, you're not truly growing. So that having that financing background definitely helped you in the understanding of the data points, and then having the sales background definitely helps in the positioning of your business and being able to promote the business. But what was your first plan of action? How did you enter the market to find success?
Man, I'll tell you, when we opened our doors, we got that first truck and hired the first couple employees. I was in for the shock of my life. I had never done anything like this before. Your employees mess up, you mess up, it's coming out of your pocket, not somebody else's, right? I was really scared. I won't even lie to you. But for me, I just had to sit back and think, hey, what do I need to do to make this work? I sank a lot of money into this business. Gotta make all my friends and family proud. I moved a couple hours away from home to do this, and so ultimately for me, I knew buying a franchise, I'd have that support, and so I just told them, hey guys, listen. How do you run this business? And so for me, I took a lot of tips from our president who's ran truck wash companies for the past 35 years. For me, honestly, I had to just figure it out. There were some tips he gave me that didn't work out in my market, but worked out in California. And for me, it was just perseverance. I mean, I had tons of failures. I didn't know how to sell the product. I wasn't confident in my product at first because I just didn't have the knowledge being kind of new into it. And, I had some trouble operating from an operations perspective with employees. But ultimately for me, I just had to, learn what these fleet managers like to hear. Just got to learn, be confident in my product. But being able to be confident in my product, I had to have a better team. So had to part ways with some people that weren't the right fit in the business and just had to hire people that saw the vision that I had. And that's ultimately what does it and builds that confident for me to confidently sell the truck wash product to, and so that's how I found success in it. Of course, also I called every other franchisee in the system, all the successful ones to ask how they did it, and I got a lot of good advice from them too. And one of them, his name's Will Summerall. He's like a big brother to me. We still talk to this day, even after I sold the business, and he's still in it. He was their first franchisee. Ultimately, it's just use your resources at the end of the day, especially when you're part of a franchise system. You've got a lot more resources than being an independent business.
What a master class in entrepreneurship that you just laid out. The being humble to understand that there's people, mentors that we like to call them, that have an understanding of what success looks like here, and they know how to get it. And being humble enough to take in that information and not being arrogant, but you know exactly what to do. Being humble enough and understanding enough that there's certain qualities that you and the team need to have. You have confidence in your product. You have to have confidence in your team. And then really being, again, persistency, being able to take the punches and keep going and have the desire to improve every single day to go after that goal of success that you are looking for. So you do that up until the age of 25. You sell that franchise. Why move into fencing? Why move in? I understand that now that you're in love with the franchise concept, you love the business in a box, but why not go back and look at restaurants now that COVID's over? Why'd you move into fencing?
It's funny, and as you know, in 2020 and 2021, the home services industry just had a huge boom. Everyone's working from home now. People are sitting at home. They're realizing, wow, my fence is falling over. Man, my roof looks pretty bad. Man, I need to paint my house because they're spending more time at home, and they're realizing their home is not as pretty as they'd like it to be, and they're not in their office all day. And so I really felt when I owned Fleet Clean, as much as I love that business, I really missed the first boom in 2021 of home services. And I just didn't have the time to add another business to my portfolio, quite frankly, at that time, still building Fleet Clean. And so for me, I knew I kind of wanted to be in that industry. I knew some people that owned roofing companies, and they've seen success with it. I knew some people that owned other franchise concepts. One was a blinds concept that did pretty well. So I knew, hey, this is kind of something I want to move into. I also wanted something that was kind of different from Fleet Clean. I kind of learned, B2B procurement. I learned the truck wash and fleet maintenance side of things, how even government makes decisions with using vendors like us, because we had several government contracts with Fleet Clean. That's kind of what made it easy to sell, I guess. But for me, I wanted a challenge. I wanted to learn, the in-home sales. I wanted to learn a little more about B2C type business. And ultimately, I've always thought construction was kind of cool. At the end of the day, fencing is construction, and I've always kind of been fascinated by it. I don't know. I think it's cool seeing a pile of wood turn into like a beautiful fence. I love seeing that transformation. So, in addition to that, Horsepower Brands, that is the parent company that owns Stand Strong Fencing. I was always so fascinated by them since 2021 when they launched their first brand, Mighty Dog Roofing, and I followed Mighty Dog for a couple years and just saw the growth and kind of the track record, and I knew I wanted to be part of that Horsepower Brands family. A Mighty Dog had sold in my area, so I couldn't buy that franchise, so I had to look at some other options, and I stumbled upon the fence one, and yeah.
So let's talk about building out that fencing company. Like you said, is it the same process that you saw with the Fleet Clean, where you have to, and when you start Stand Strong, did you initially focus on the team development? Did you have to focus on the confidence of your product? What knowledge did you take from building that first franchise successfully that you made sure was a foundational part of building Stand Strong Fencing?
It's all about your team. If you don't have good operations, your operation's going to fall apart sooner rather than later. You need to have good sales and people who are able to sell. They're hungry like you. They see your vision and they're bought in. Ultimately, I knew that's what I needed from a foundation perspective with this, just like my last business, to make things work. Interestingly, I was a little when I had my first business, I wasn't 100% confident on the products. I didn't have the right people and I didn't know much about truck washing. Funny enough, I went into this not knowing much about fencing, but I was still confident in the product just because I guess I heard, I've spoken with so many franchise owners before I opened. I've seen photos of the fences they built. I'm like, wow, that is so cool. That's proven. Like, you see, I mean, they just built we built some of the most beautiful fences on a national franchise level that I knew, man, we're going to do the same here in Washington, D.C. and Northern Virginia. So funny enough, that wasn't a fear of mine or an issue like with the last business when opening. But ultimately, for the success, it's all about your team, operations and sales folks.
So let's talk about the pivot that you have from understanding the B2B market, which you did with Fleet Clean, to the B2C market, the direct to consumer market, which you're doing with Stand Strong Fencing. What's the biggest learning lesson that you're taking from that transition and the differentiation between directly B2B to more direct to consumer?
Yeah, it's funny. Selling cars in college, I thought, man, I know B2C so well. Funny enough, cars and fences are totally different things and totally different than being B2B for truck washing. And so, one thing I've had to learn is that, a home is a very intimate area for folks, right?
Mm.
I mean, so for me, I have to understand, hey, these people are entrusting me and my team to go into their home, give out their address. We know where they live and stuff like that. We've really got to provide kind of an environment that makes them be able to trust us. They feel safe handing us over a good amount of money for a fence. With business to business, it's like, hey, director says this is the budget, so can you meet it or not, right? And that's kind of how it was with truck washing. Honestly, this is totally different. Yes, folks have budgets. Can we meet it or not? Yes, of course, that's part of it. But there's more of that kind of soft skill set you need to have to be able to gain trust and especially people just giving out their information, right? Whether they want to finance a fence, they're giving out their information with their name and their address. So that's to me, that's something I've learned, and I'm good at that stuff, being able to make people feel comfortable in that way. But it's just something that I was like, man, I never had to do this with my last business, being kind of a B2B type thing compared to this.
Andy, you're a well of knowledge, and I want to pull some more data out of you if you don't mind. And the last question here on the franchise side: if someone was listening to this right now, a young entrepreneur, or a business owner, or someone that's just looking to get into the franchise world, what advice would you give them before they decide to move forward with a franchise?
Yeah, one thing I would tell them is, franchising is not for everybody. I think some people are better off starting their own business as an independent. I like to tell people this, when you buy a franchise, at the end of the day, you're aligning with the founders or the parent company's values and goals. If you don't align with their values and goals, it's probably something you shouldn't do. If I wanted to really put my name, Andy Trinh, be super famous out there, I would have done maybe Andy Trin's fencing instead of Stand Strong. But for me, what I like about franchising is that it's more than just yourself, which is and so for me, I really like kind of helping grow the Stand Strong name for other franchise owners as well. So it's more than just me. And also just be prepared if you own a business, whether it's a franchise or not. A lot of people think, hey, you buy a franchise, people know the name or the corporate team's going to build it for you. That's not how it works. Be prepared to work harder than you ever have. That's all I'm going to say. At least in the beginning, you'll be working 6 to 7 days a week, long hours a day, 8 to 10, maybe 16 hours a day. I mean, those are all hours I've worked before. So just putting it out there from an entrepreneurial side, that if you're not ready to commit that amount of time into something and to make it work, maybe business ownership just might not be right for you even.
Yeah, and it's a large initial investment, right? Because it's not like, again, if I want to start a fencing contractor and I'm somebody, say I'm a current fencing contractor that's just doing fencing around the house, and I was like, hey, I want to start a business. Like, it's not that much of a cost, right? But if you can go into a franchise, you have a set cost to be able to absorb not only their brand name, their imagery, their abilities, their SOPs, their documentation, and it is that higher cost forces you to make sure that you're having higher degree of success right off the rip. And it seems like pressure is not a problem for you, Andy. Absolutely crushing it, and it's great to hear a story. You said you're 27 now. How old are you?
Yeah, I just turned 27 on Sunday. So less than a week ago, I had just turned 27. Yep.
Dude, happy birthday, and what a rock star, man. Really, really doing great. Let's pivot a little bit more into Stand Strong Fencing and talk about that a little bit. So you buy this franchise, you start this business. When did you buy this one? 2 years ago?
I bought it at the end of 2024.
Okay, so you're getting it to your 2-year anniversary there. How did you take that franchise concept? And I think this is the information that everyone's very curious about because, as you said, yes, you get a blueprint, you get a business in a box, but the messaging and the ideas in California are not going to be the same as what you're going to see in your specific area. So, how did you create uniqueness around your business so that it resonated within the local area so you could find the success that you're finding today?
Absolutely. Here in Washington, D.C., and Arlington, Virginia, and just Northern Virginia, I guess, you have so much competition. There's some household names here there's some of these companies have been around for 80 years. No joke. Great company. Don't get me wrong. There's some guys that have been around for 30 years. So they've become household names. But sometimes being in business for so long, you have a lot of happy clients, but you've also got some upset clients. And so, some people kind of bring those names. They hear those names, they have negative connotations. It's kind of cool to be kind of the new kid on the block. Stand Strong Fencing. No one's ever heard of it. People are say, wow, what a unique name. Stand Strong Fencing. I was telling them, yep, our fences stand strong. And that's always my response. And so, for me, I think that's kind of one thing that's kind of led to our success and kind of being the new kid on the block. People are fascinated, the catchy name. Also, I think when I tell people that I'm the owner and I'm 27 years old, when I go on a sales call or check up on a job site, they're like, "Whoa, that's interesting." And so, not many fence guys or business owners start when they're 27 years old. And then lastly, I think for us too, just I think for me, it's just providing just treating people like family whenever you meet with them, whether it's an employee, whether it's a client, and that's kind of it resonates with people, and they're going to tell their friends and family who need a fence about how Andy Trinh and his team took care of them better than any other contractor ever has, and that's what we always strive for.
I love that. Really taking care of the customer, making sure they're a part of the business. Where's it going, Andy? What's your plan for Stand Strong Fencing? What's its trajectory? Where do you want it to go? What is your goal in say the next 1 to 3 years?
Absolutely. So for us at Stand Strong Fencing, in my franchising, I guess kind of as a on a national level, we're actually just starting to add railing as an extra service in addition to fences. Just because funny enough, we didn't even advertise it, and we've gotten a good amount of inquiries within the past month for it. In fact, we're working on a quote right now for it for a gentleman who wants railings for his restaurant. So I saw there's a demand for that, and I want to add that in addition to fencing. I definitely want to add a couple more salespeople and maybe one or two more managers within the next 1 to 2 years as we grow. A lot of the stuff we've done is kind of regular, good old stockade privacy fences, and now we're starting to get into more complex jobs such as composite or jobs that have gate automation. We're actually doing an install on Saturday. A gentleman wants a sliding gate with a clicker. He just clicks it and the gate will slide it for his driveway. So we're getting into more complex projects as well. And lastly, of course, we want to break more into that commercial space.
And so now going back to that B2B roots, right? And be able to bring that in and pitch that for fencing instead of truck cleaning, right? So bringing that knowledge in as well as expanding your service line and really having clear goals of the amount of employees you have. I'm assuming you have a revenue goal that you have as well as a profit margin goal that all goes into that. So, obviously, Andy, understanding your numbers, understanding your customer base, understanding your employees and building what people would call culture inside the business that aligns with your goals, your vision, as well as I love how you constantly bring in the franchise concept. It's larger than just you. It's larger than just your business. It's a nationwide company that you all stand behind the same vision, the same goals, and the same ideology of what success really means. And that's super powerful. I want to pivot a little bit more to you personally, Andy. We talked about your backstory a little bit. We talked about your success with your first business and now success with your second. For you personally, do you have a story or anything that's happened to you throughout the development of you being an entrepreneur with these two franchises that you'd like to share with our listeners here that would show a little bit about how business has educated you or something that maybe happened to you that changed your mindset in business that would help our listeners here?
Absolutely. Everyone starts a business for a multitude of reasons. A lot of people, they want to do it to get rich, right? Or the potential of getting rich. A lot of people want to do it because they're sick of corporate America and they're sick of their 9 to 5. And so for me, I did it because I thought, hey, I've met people that have hustled in business and they've done pretty well for themselves. So of course there's that's a factor of it, right? Of course there's the risk you also don't do well. And then also, but it's funny, two byproducts of business ownership that I really enjoy that I kind of didn't think I would was, you know, prior to Fleet Clean, I always worked for somebody, right? Whether it was a job in college or an internship or even my short corporate stint prior to Fleet Clean after college. And man, I'll tell you, it is really you feel really free not having to report to anybody and having that freedom with being able to, hey, I'm gonna take the day off. Hey, I don't have to ask for PTO, stuff like that. But with that freedom also comes a lot of responsibility. Let's say you take that day off and your operation isn't going well. Well, guess who's gonna get angry phone calls from customers or things just kind of fall apart. And so with a lot of freedom does come that responsibility. But I do enjoy that freedom that I didn't have prior. And the other thing is honestly really employing people and building teams. I've met so many people throughout the businesses I've owned. It's either, hey, I'm looking for a job. I'm in between jobs right now. I lost mine and I'm really in a pinch. I got kids, right? That and a family I've got to take care of. Or, hey, I'm just so burnt out. I want to learn a new skill in a new industry. Hey, I'm not really happy with my job and I'm looking to learn something different. You seem like a nice guy. And so, wherever people are in life, I really like to think, hey, I help them out in some type of way by providing them employment, whether they're still with me or whether they have left. So,
Super powerful. And you can hear, I mean, for the listeners, hear the energy, the charisma, the excitement that he has in his voice. Obviously, when he's talking about a little bit of freedom, is definitely nice. But then when he talks about his employees and the fact that all of us as entrepreneurs are able to help the world around us, not just by our service, but by the people that are in our business that are giving that service and giving them a good life and being able to support them throughout the life. Super powerful, Andy. My final question for you, and for you, I'm very excited to hear the answer because this is my favorite question out of all of them. How do you find your Kaizen? Kaizen is a Japanese business philosophy that means 1% improvement every single day or taking small steps to a larger goal. You, as an individual, Andy, what do you do throughout your day to constantly have the motivation that you have the desire for growth, and be able to push that needle forward at just 1% every single day?
Yeah, for me, honestly, how I find it, I like looking at my failures. I like to see whether I didn't close a sale, whether I messed something up, from an admin perspective or from a finance perspective. I like to really kind of learn from my failures and see how I can improve. And every day, I'm improving 1% every day from learning from these mistakes. And so, not sure if that's a conventional answer or not, but that's how I like to improve personally.
Dude, very direct. And no, it honestly is not the most conventional area. A lot of people have their own mentality of looking at their positives, but someone like yourself who's constantly striving to improve, looking at those failures gives you obvious aspects that you need to improve in. And I love that, Andy. If someone's listening to this right now and they want to get connected with you and want to learn a little bit more about you, how would they find you?
Absolutely. Feel free to connect with me on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Facebook. I'm an open book. All you need to do is just look up Andy Trinh, Stand Strong Fencing. You can find me on LinkedIn.
His LinkedIn information and any other information you supply, Instagram, anything like that, I can put below in the description. You guys can find it right below this video. Awesome. Andy, thank you so much for your time. Obviously, a absolute rock star when it comes to franchises, that when it comes to owning a business, developing a business, being able to sell and then go right into the next one. At a young 27 years old, you're absolutely crushing it. And I hope you continue to make successful businesses all throughout your career. If you guys have finished this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next Kaizen podcast.